I want to thank you for watching my video. I've put together some suggestions here, some very simple suggestions based on my experience seeing all sorts of music, all types of music. I've worked with a lot of composers. I've written a lot of music myself. I've played a lot of music. I think I have a pretty good idea what music should look like, and I've come up with a few simple suggestions on how to improve some of the things I see regularly that come up, especially with music notation for new composers. Today I want to talk a little bit about some things you can do to improve the appearance of your music notation. Now, you read a lot of books about notation, and there are lists of rules about all sorts of things: time signatures, key signatures, spacing, margins, all that. I want to keep it simple basically here, and I'm talking about mostly orchestral parts. And the first thing I want to mention is that you use a font which is appropriate for the type of music that you're going to write. And for these orchestral parts, orchestral music in general, and chamber music, classical music, I think you should use a serif font for the title. So I would use something like a Times font for the title. The G. Schirmer manual suggests the Gaudi font as part of their house style. So use that for titles, composer name, instrument name, which would go up here in the corner, copyright information, and that sort of big text that would be in the margins. I'm not talking about the text for tempos and articulation and technique within the music. The other thing about fonts is I think you should use a music font which has a large note head. This makes it much easier to read, especially in scores where the staves are particularly small. So in this case, I have the Petrucci font showing, but I suggest using a larger font. Now I'm using Sibelius not for any particular reason other than I use it more often. But you can do this in Finale also. So I'm going to select the Opus font in Sibelius, and you can see how it makes the note heads bigger. In Finale you can increase the size of the note head, but in Sibelius you have to choose a font which has a larger note head. The other thing I'm going to suggest is that the first line of music be indented like this. Usually it's going to line up, I would say, with the line below it where possibly maybe a time signature might go. This is not exact, but it should be consistent throughout your parts, whatever degree of indenting you choose. The other thing I'm going to suggest here is that you eliminate this line, this bar line, at the beginning of each one of the lines. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to try to get rid of that. Okay, there should not be a bar line at the beginning of single stave parts. The other things that are important here are measure numbers at the beginning of each line, and the measure number should be positioned. In this case, I like to position it above the clef sign and in line with the staff, like there. Now you will see music where the measure numbers are out here like that. That's fine, but that means you have to allow some extra margin space, and so you're going to lose a little bit of space there in the music. So that's why I like to put it up here. You should also use rehearsal letters at the major divisions points in your music, because as you know, this is very helpful for rehearsals. The other thing is you want to always use multi-rests where you can. You don't want a situation like this right here where you have a string of single measure rests and the player has to count and then they start writing on the music. So combine your rests into multi-rests, and you can use this old-fashioned style of rest indication like that, or you can use the block rests. It doesn't matter, but I want you to be consistent in whatever method you use and in whatever fonts you use and whatever style you use, because if you're consistent within your own parts, then you will start to create a house style for yourself, and it will be recognizable as your music. Now I'd like to get a little more specific with some other suggestions on how to improve the appearance of your music. And the first thing, for instrumental parts, again, let's look at this. Put the name of the instrument that you're going to use in the upper left-hand corner of the first page, just like that, bass clarinet in A. Also, use appropriate transpositions for the instrument you're writing for. In this case, bass clarinet in A is not a good choice, and because bass clarinets are in B flat, so this part would need to be transposed to B flat for a modern bass clarinet. And then as far as the name of the instrument goes, on subsequent pages you want to have the name of the instrument, and I prefer to have it at the top in the center, and it's a header in this case. Also, in page numbering, even numbered pages, the number goes in the top left-hand corner of even numbered pages. Odd numbered pages, the number would go in this spot, but you don't put a number at the beginning of page 1. Just as you do not place a measure number at measure number 1. It goes without saying. So your first measure number is going to be at the beginning of the second line of music. So the next thing I want to mention is the use of articulation, dynamic slurs, and tempo indications. If you're a composer, don't leave these out. Be sure to have the appropriate tempo marked. You could even say quarter note equals or half note equals. You need to use dynamics so that your piece will be realized in the way that you conceived of it. Staccato, accents, slurs, hairpins, and text all go together to improve the way your music looks and the way it ultimately will sound. And finally, the one thing you can do which will improve your music is proofread, proofread, proofread. You can never do enough proofreading. Have someone else proofread your music. I can't stress proofreading enough.